Hello and welcome to another Paul and Ted's Talk Time. This is Ted, I'm Paul, and today we're going to be talking about living abroad, living overseas as an expat.
And how long have you been doing that for, Paul?
25 years.
Yeah, well.
And you?
Longer, 30, 35, yeah.
I didn't plan it like that. It all happened by default and...
I don't think,
10 countries later.
Yeah.
How many countries have you lived in?
Have I actually lived in, as where I would say was my home? 4 or 5 maybe, like that. Obviously visited a lot more, but actually sort of set up shop.
What countries were those?
Philippines, Saudi Arabia has to go down as one where we used to work. Here, Bulgaria, and in Central America, in Costa Rica. They would be the 4 main ones. Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Japan, Korea, Philippines, New Zealand, China, Bulgaria, where I am now,
and you would call all those places at some point in your life your home where you lived, yeah.
I mean, the shortest I lived for was in South Korea, which was for a year.
Okay, so almost not going to count that then, I suppose. Well, I mean, when you sort of think about sort of places you've lived, it's places where you're looking forward to getting back there if you go away from it, kind of thing, and thinking, well, this is my actual home here. Very much like what we do here. How long have we been here now then? 7 years?
Yeah, and we were together, of course, in Saudi Arabia for a good 10, weren't we? 9, 10.
Yeah, a few years there, weren't we?
And that's of course where we met. So, what are the pros of living overseas? I mean,
cheaper.
Yeah, it's
that's got to be the big one, isn't it? It's cheaper.
Yeah.
And perhaps not cheaper as in that's the way to put it. Better value for money. I think you get more for what you pay for.
We often compare the UK because we're both
from the UK, so it's a good place to start.
And we often do this, don't we? We compare what you get for your book in the UK and what you get here.
Here. Well, let's take here first because we have these two in common. Yeah.
So how would you describe them?
Well, I mean, let's look at the everyday. I mean, if we're going to start with costs of living, let's start with the basics, which is the bills.
Oh yeah. Well, the first thing that stands out in my mind, of course, is the standard payment for the utility bills. I mean, in the UK, you have to pay
the standing order.
The standing order.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Regardless of whether you use it or not, you're paying for it.
And it's not a small amount.
No, it's not. I mean, I actually don't know what it is now.
Yeah, well, let's not worry about that. Just assume it's a lot. Because it's all a bit of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you add them up together, the water and the electric and the gas, I'm sure it amounts to a fair amount. Whereas, of course, here, if you don't use anything, you don't pay anything.
You don't pay anything.
No.
Yeah. Big thing, isn't it? Really, especially if you're going away.
Yeah. I mean, rates, of course, are another big one, aren't they? I mean,
rates are huge because the thing about England, I mean, you could own your own house. I mean, I used to have my own house in England, and back in those days, I think they called them rates, didn't they? Rates, was it? Yeah.
Is it are rates and council tax?
I think it's the same thing. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
The rates were high, but in proportion to what you were earning, they were something equivalent to sort of car insurance. You'd be able to pay it once a year. Now it's like a monthly payment for living in your own house. I think that's something. Okay, yes, we all know that the money goes to the government and to the local council, and that pays for local services, and we're all very grateful for somebody to come and collect the rubbish, etc. But take here, for example, I mean, we're paying what percentage
Well, let's
Two-
let's put it in real figures for them. For this house, and this is a fairly big house. I've got about how many acres? Not acres. How many? 3,000.
Well, let's look at the size of the house itself. We've got a 3-bedroom house here, 4-bedroom,
Yeah.
3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3-bedroom house. So what would we be looking at in England? Sort of like Bandsea
With a
or
huge
something?
garden.
Yeah, with a huge garden. So what would we be looking at per month for that?
Well, it would depend on the area, of
Okay.
course, wouldn't it? I mean,
150 a month, would that seem about right? Pounds, we're talking pounds here.
well, if you wanted a place like this where I have literally no neighbours and I can blast my music and there's no road and car traffic passing by, you'd be looking at quite an affluent area, I should imagine.
So,
well, let's say
200 euros a month times 10, because council tax is charged for 10 months, not 12. So you have, like, I think March and April is a payment window. So let's round figures here. Let's go to euros, because we can compare euros, because we have euros here. Well, we have a local currency, but we also have euros. And so 2,000, let's say, I think that it won't be far away from that. And in our currency, you double it, which is 4,000 of our local currency. Now, 4,000 a year compared to what we pay would be somewhere in the region of 40. So 4,400, 4,000. That means we're paying 1%. Why? Yeah. We get somebody to have the bins collected. Yeah, they come along. We don't pay for that. So why is that, Paul? Come on.
Well, you're not getting you're not getting the trimmings that you get in the UK.
For example.
Okay, I don't know. Roads come under a different tax, don't they?
It's probably in council tax.
Yeah. Roads.
Not that bad. Can you get to town okay? I was all right this morning. I mean, is it something you'd want to pay 100 times tax for?
Not when you put it in those terms, is it?
Okay. I mean, going back to our original point, Paul asked me, what's the advantage of living abroad? I said value for money. So I think we get value for money. Yes, we don't have everything which the UK has, but we're not far off it. Fair to say?
I think so. I mean, my bone of contention about living overseas here has always been the healthcare. I mean, I'm a great lover of the NHS. Always have been, and always will remain to my dying day, I should imagine. And I miss that. You don't get the standard of healthcare that you would get in the UK.
That's your personal opinion.
This is my personal opinion. Yes.
Okay, now you recently went in for an operation.
Yes, I did.
And so did I. We both had operations.
The same operation.
The same operation this year, which is
within
a reflection of
Oh.
lifestyle and age. Okay, what was missing? What would you have got in England which you didn't get there?
The moddy cuddling. That
You
I
want
love.
your brow mopped. Would you have got that in England?
I actually don't know, because it's 25 years since I've been there, and I listen to Radio 4 a lot, and I hear that there's a lot of complaints floating around about, especially after the pandemic now, about waiting list times. And it was only this morning I was hearing on the radio that it's very difficult to get to see a doctor now.
Okay, so maybe not quite as wonderful as you thought.
No, it's hard to gauge now, because it is such a long time since I've been there, and I'm sure a lot has changed.
About 4 or 5 years ago, when my mum was still with us, she was in hospital for an extended period of time, maybe a month or so, and it was in 2 hospitals. It was in one big regional hospital, and then she got moved when she got better to a more local hospital, a much smaller thing. And I thought they were fine. I thought the people working there were good. I thought the treatment was first class. I have to say that. Yeah. So yes. So here's another question, Paul. If you got sick, I mean, when I say sick, let's say something, how we say bad, not the common cold. Let's say something where you would need treatment over an extended period of time. What's your move?
I'd probably head out to Thailand.
And pay for it
Yeah.
over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had major surgery done in Thailand in a very famous hospital out there. Ironically enough, I wasn't getting the treatment that I hoped for in the UK at the time, and nobody could identify what the problem was. So I went and had
a number of people. This hospital is based in Bangkok. Now, a number of people we used to work with. When you live abroad and you work abroad, you basically neglect your health because you're doing other things. And people recommended this place to me, and I looked it up online.
It was me, wasn't it?
It was, him. And it said over 50s holistic checkup. I think it's over 55. So I went there 3 years ago. I went there. This place is called the Bumrungrad in Bangkok. £800, and they called it €900, $1,150 US. And they spent the whole day checking on me. You went through every single check under the sun. I wasn't sick. I was just having a checkup. And I never had a checkup like this before. They checked everything, ultrasound, everything, x-rays, what have you. And at the end of it, you get yourself a CD, a book, and an interview with a guy who tells you all the things you've got wrong, all the things you can sort of brush up on. And it was really, really good. And you could do that in England, but it would be 5 or 6 times the price. Here, I have no idea whether they have such a thing.
And of course, it's this way. The doors open and there's no waiting, of course, and you're attended to, and
yeah, but you're paying for it. That's $1,000 in one afternoon gone.
Yeah. So you're asking me what's my move. I think I would try and preempt anything and do what we've talked about.
Maintain the checkups.
Maintain the checkups.
Yeah, it is a good move.
Keep the red flags in the distance, and of course one of your sons training to be a doctor, and he said quite rightly too that time, you need time on your side, and if you can identify any of these things, the earlier the better. And this is one good way of flagging potential ailments.
So is it now fair to say, sort of bringing it back to our discussion, that living abroad, you have to perhaps the healthcare is variable? Is that fair to say, place to place?
Yeah,
I mean, apart from stating the obvious, is that going to be an influencing factor?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably is. Now, going back to your operation the other day, a couple of months ago, how was it?
It was what I might expect from here, which is, you get seen to, but you don't get the iron sheets and the mollycoddling,
But they stitched you up all right, You haven't
so
got
far,
bits hanging out. They didn't steal any bits of yours.
I think they tend to know what they're doing, and so far so good. But hey, it's only a hernia.
Hernia it was, yeah. Not open heart surgery, but still an operation.
I mean,
you're still.
Let me ask you this, why we're on this topic. You have a brain hemorrhage. Touch wood that we don't have this happen. Okay.
Need a brain before you get that.
Yeah, well that counts. Now let's say here, touch wood here. You have a brain hemorrhage, and they need to quickly release pressure on your brain.
Right.
Are you okay with that here?
Do you have a choice?
Not really. Do you?
So they wouldn't.
Yeah, The way I look at it, you're toast. Pretty much. If you have something like that, seriously, pressure building up on, do they really have the facilities in the local hospital to do that?
So you're saying living abroad, let's put it under a
In this-
general
in
thing,
this-
it's a bit of a trade-off in as much as you're
Yeah.
going to have
It's Russian roulette, isn't it?
you know, maybe you're going to have a better life, you're going to get more for your money, you're going to have less rules, whatever way you want to distinguish it from your home place. But on the flip side, you know, you need to stay healthy.
Well, I
Does
mean,
this-
okay, let's bring one of your favourites into this, right?
Okay.
Stress.
Okay.
Now,
Big one.
think of the people that are in the UK, right, getting up at 6:30 in the morning to go to have their breakfast and then get on the train and travel, commute for an hour, sometimes an hour and more than an hour, and get to work, and then they come home and don't particularly enjoy their work, and it's pretty miserable and stressful for a lot of people. Now, you compare that to here. We're not exactly living the stressful life, are we?
No, we're not.
And there's a lot to be said for stress.
But isn't that why most people, I mean, let's look at reasons why people move abroad. That's got to be high up the list, isn't it? X amount of money or X amount of passive income or living abroad to have a stress-free life. That's it, isn't it? Is that it?
And getting your money, getting your money to go further, it would be part of that, wouldn't it?
Do you have to take earning money out of the equation to live comfortably abroad? I mean, in as much as people in the West like to maximize their earning, they look for ways in making money. I think if you live abroad, you have to drop that idea.
Well, you have this false, can we call it a false economy or false conception in the West? This is another one you like to labour about, the idea about the house being worth X amount of money and people getting caught up in this.
The facade. Yeah. The fantasy that what you have there is worth what people say. Yeah. It's not, mate. No.
Do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
It's a very long and tricky subject, and it's all based on false demand. You know, government have increased have made it so basically the house prices are retained high in order to cash in on huge taxation when people pass away. So it's a means to an end. But the short and the long of it, the actual asset itself is actually not worth that. A bit like Bitcoin, I suppose, in some respects. You know, you have an inflated asset. Now here, I'd say we almost go the other way round. I think what we have here is deflated assets. A few years ago, the property prices crashed by about 40%, and people here were caught out. You know, this was before our time. People had come here, bought at such and such a price, and the bottom fell out of the market. And now what we're faced with is a price lower than what the actual bricks and cement are actually worth. If you pile them all up on a truck, you know, to buy them would cost more than the actual house. So you have these two things here.
Just getting back to the prices of things here. If we look at, say, an electric bill for this house will be about £20 a month.
But it has to be based around, the bills have to be based around what people can pay. Take a can of Coke. You're trying to market a can of Coke in 3 different countries. In the UK, in here, Bulgaria, and let's take another country, China, for example. You're going to get a different price in each of these countries, and it'll be relative to what people earn, a percentage, you know, price index, if you will. When they, you know, your price index of inflation is based around everyday consumables, and they work it out: bread, milk, meat, how much you're going to consume in a given period of time. The weighting, in other words, how much bread you're going to eat in relation to bread, in relation to running a car, and then work out you know, how much it costs and how much money you need. Now, if you were marketing a product, okay, you'd have to base the price on what people would pay for it. Because if you had a can of Coke here at the same price it's selling for in London, nobody would buy it and you wouldn't sell your product. So therefore, yeah, that's not marketing. That's basically making something, putting it on the shelf, and it not selling. So it's all very, very relative.
Well, one thing I can say for sure about living here, not so much in other countries I've lived in, but certainly living here, is the amount of disposable income I have.
You have,
Yeah.
but you're working out of the country.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I'm still able, because of the small amount that I'm paying for utilities, electric, tax, etc., etc., etc. I end up with better value for money,
and that's a big factor in why.
And that's a huge.
Has it always been like that in all the countries you've been to?
No, it hasn't. No, I mean Saudi Arabia, it was great. You know, for the obvious reasons of tax-free income
and very little outlet to spend your money.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you know, as you well know. I mean,
I mean, you couldn't. There's nowhere to go and spend your money, so they just gave you a check at the end of the month, and it was kind of still there by the end of the next month because you couldn't really spend it.
But I mean, if I cast my mind back to when I lived in New Zealand, and New Zealand's very similar to the UK in a lot of respects. You know, it shares a kind of cultural heritage. And, you know, the values are pretty much the same, and also the utility bills and the cost of living is very parallel to the UK. I ended up saving nothing.
So breaking even?
Just about, yeah.
So how long were you there?
I was there for a good 5 years.
So 5 years, there we go. So marking time, effectively.
Marking time, beautiful country, but very, very expensive. Very expensive in terms of rent. Rent was huge, and I was able to maybe have a few beers on a Friday.
Okay, well that's another relevant point. Is you know quality of life. That has to go in the mix as well, of course. And of course, this is a huge subject which we're unable to cover in this time.
But New Zealand is a beautiful country.
So your quality of life was good?
No, not really, because of the expense of everything.
So in order to go out for a meal, you'd have to take a chunk of your wages.
Yeah, or have 2 jobs, you know, work all the hours that, you know, God sends.
But you still needed that. I mean, you still need to have a quality of life to justify living day to day. You can't just sort of hole up in a place and think, well, it's expensive and therefore I can't go out and I can't do anything.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic country.
I mean, England, when I was there, I always kind of enjoyed England. You know, there was always things to do, and the weekend was always good, and you know, great social time.
But of course, you've got the advent of the internet now, which brings everything together, doesn't it? I mean,
for better or for worse.
Yeah. I mean, here I am now working from the comfort of my little study there, teaching overseas, you know, in a far distant country. I don't even have to, I mean, my commute is from my bedroom down the stairs and in there. That's it. Yeah, without the internet, none of that would have happened for sure. Anyway, that's about it for today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, an easy subject to chat about because, you know, you can go on forever about this one.
Yeah. As usual, drop us any comments that you'd like feedback on, and we'll see you soon.
Okie dokie.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.